Also, Tom had engines, which were clean, bright, and shiny. They loved to be washed down and having their brass polished until it cleans. James was in the workshop, being painted. He was beside himself with joy. James thought being repainted mean he was special. The workman painted and polished for half upon 1 hour. Then paint shining, press twinkling, and blacking black, James returned to the shakes. Look, aren't I a beautiful lady? He asked. The others, no wonder, Sir Tom had things on special. But Pussy wasn't worried. He wasn't being repainted and he wasn't red. Does this mean Sir Tom doesn't think I'm special? He asked. Looking splendid is not the same as being really useful, said Thomas firmly. But best of all is being really useful and looking splendid like me, said James cheerfully. Before Thomas couldn't see anything else, James closed his eyes and fell happily asleep. The next morning, all the engines were very busy. Pussy worked in a coaling plant. Thomas and Elliot were taking passengers up and down the branch lines. Gordon was going express. Sir Tom came to see James. He told him to join Percy at the coal plant. At once, the coal cars must reach Brenham docks before their boat sails. So no silly things, he said. Yes, sir, said James. He set off at once. But James didn't go straight to the coal plant. He decided to go find the council instead. Then he could see himself in the water. For yard after yard after yard. Massively, he puffed. James had forgotten what the Tom had said. At the coal yard, Percy was working as hard as he could, but he was falling behind. I think I'm tired of a little bit. Going longer, the yard manager was getting closer and closer. Where could James be? Where can James be? James was still enjoying himself, but there was no one around to share. It's fine. Share his fun. But also, he headed for Wellsford Station, but as James pulled into Wellsford Station, Gordon and the express were pulling out. The passengers had gone. Bother, said James. He was disappointed and left at the station. James headed straight through the branch lines. James saw Thomas working. Steve saw Thomas. Look at me, puffed. Don't I look fine? You should at work, called Thomas, but James didn't listen to Thomas. James was enjoying being James. But Percy was enjoying being Percy. He was trying his hardest, but the trolls and trusts were being naughty. being very naughty. Poor Pussy. Was almost worn out. What will happen to the order now? Cried the yarn manager. When James rolled into the coal plant, it was late in the afternoon. Percy was cross, so was the yarn manager. To make up for lost time, he said, he must take an extra long line of coal cars to the docks. James was delighted. The docks were always bustling with engines and people. It's the place to be seen, he said. The troublesome trucks were being naughty, warned Pussy, but James was still wasn't listening. James puffed along, looking forward to being seen, but the troublesome trucks were naughtier than ever. They rocked and rolled and crashed and bashed. James's face was soon covered and stood going downhill. The troublesome trucks wiggled and giggled. James had to put his brakes on with a jolt. Coal tumbled out of the troublesome trucks, landing on James. James was cross and biffed the troublesome trucks as hard as he could. More coal flew out. Now James didn't want to be seen. He was dirty as he ever been. But on his way to the docks, he kept passing his friends. He passed Emily, he passed Edward, and Thomas. Thomas thought the only red thing left on James was his face. James turned into Brandon docks. James turned into Brandon docks. He hoped no one will see him, but Gordon was at the docks. It's the express. He could not believe his eyes. He thought James was the grumblest, dirtiest thing ever seen. Percy arrived safely with the last of the coal cars. I like your new coat of paint, he puffed cheekily. You do look splendid. James knew he shouldn't have listened, but he didn't feel splendid anymore. But for the first time all day, James could hear clearly. He could hear the sounds of troublesome trucks giggling at him, and despite feeling foolish, even James had to smile.